We are doing our last defense season review before we get into the goalies. And I'm not saying that we saved the best for last, but I am saying that we're talking about Nick Blankenburg today, how he did at Michigan, the Frozen Four, and what his NHL debut was like. We're going to talk about all that and more on today's Locked On Blue Jackets.
Locked On Blue Jackets, your daily podcast on the Columbus Blue Jackets. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Blue Jackets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am, as always, your host, Jay Foster, here to bring you news, stories, excitement, sadness, ranting, yelling, all of the above, about your favorite team and mine, the Columbus Blue Jackets. So before we get started, I want to thank everyone for making this your first listen of the day every day. And I hope everyone is enjoying your Labor Day long weekend. It is not a long weekend here for me, but I hope you are all enjoying it over there in North America. So have an extra beer for me. And before we get started, Locked On Blue Jackets is free and available on all podcast platforms. We're also over on YouTube. So if you haven't hit the subscribe button over there, then feel free to do so. It helps me out. It helps you out. You can get notifications of when I publish. You don't have to go looking for it. So everybody wins. Like I said at the top of the show, today we're going to be talking about Nick Blankenburg. This is going to be our final season review for defensemen before we move on to the goalies. And I'm not saying that I saved the best till last because I think they're a better defenseman, but I am saying that I love Nick Blankenburg a lot, and I think he could be a really interesting piece for this team. So let's take it right back. Let's talk about Nick Blankenburg's career. Let's talk about Nick Blankenburg's career so far. So he is from Michigan, played all of his junior hockey out of Michigan, and then played in the AJHL, which I believe stands for the American Junior Hockey League. And this league is probably most notable for that's where Cale Makar played before he was drafted. Nick Blankenburg is not Cale Makar, but I think it's really fun that we're starting to see players come from leagues like the AJHL, like high school hockey, and not necessarily just picking American players from the US NDP. I think it's fun. So he played a season with the Okotoks Oilers, had 42 points in 57 games, and then went to the University of Michigan. Played all 4 years, and Michigan was not drafted into the NHL. Did play his junior year and his senior year with a bunch of pretty big names throughout his career. Obviously, he played with Owen Power, he played with Matty Beniers, he played with CBJ's own Kent Johnson, Luke Hughes, Maki Samoskevich, Brendan Brisson, like all of these first and second round picks. He played with them, he learned with them, and then I believe in his, I want to say freshman year, but I could be wrong about that. He actually ended up being Quinn Hughes's defense partner when Quinn Hughes' regular defense partner went to World Juniors or World Championships, something along those lines. But the point is, he's played with some really big names and some really good players. And I think he's learned a lot from all of that. And he was rewarded this offseason, or not quite offseason. He finished his college career, unfortunately, with the Frozen Four loss. At the University of Michigan, they made it to the semifinal, but couldn't quite get the win. And he was rewarded with a contract from the Columbus Blue Jackets. Kent Johnson signed his ECHL. He signed his ELC, and not very long after that, Nick Blankenburg also signed a entry-level contract with the Blue Jackets as a free agent, and really kind of made the most of it from there. He only played 7 games for the Blue Jackets at the end of the season, but he scored his first NHL goal, and he had 2 more points on top of that. So 3 points in 7 games is honestly pretty darn good, if you ask me. And that's kind of how we got to where we are right now with Nick Blankenburg. He signed an extension a couple of weeks ago, or maybe I think it was in July, perhaps. Time has lost all meaning. And so he's going to be a Blue Jacket next season, or possibly a Monster. We haven't quite figured that out yet, but we're going to talk about that in the next segment. But first, I've got to tell you all about Built Bar, because Built Bar is great. We love Built Bar, and they've got a new flavor. It's cookie dough chunk puff. I always get that mixed up, but yeah, that's right. Cookie dough chunk puffs. It is the cookie dough chunk bar that everyone knows and loves, but instead of making it a bar, they've made it a puff. It is marshmallowy. It is soft. It is delicious. It's got huge chunks of cookie dough in it, and like all Built Bars, it's covered in 100% real chocolate. You get all the joys of eating cookie dough without any of the hassle of making it, and with only 160 calories and 15 grams of protein, it's good for you as well. So run to build.com to snag a box for you and the family. It's going to be the perfect treat for everyone, or you can do what I do, which is find a really good hiding place and just hoard them all for yourself. You're going to love this bar. It's one of my favorites. Now that I've tried it, I was unsure about it at first, but I'm a full convert to the cookie dough chunk puff. And whether you need a snack for your workout, a late night treat, or, you just need to grab a quick bite because, like me, you forgot to eat breakfast and now it's 2 p.m. Built is the perfect protein bar, and they taste way better than a candy bar. So ditch the calories, the fat, and the sugar, and grab yourself a Built bar. And here's the best bit. If you go to built.com, you can use promo code LOCKEDON15 and get 15% off your order. Once again, that's promo code LOCKEDON, LOCKEDON15 at built.com and get 15% off your order of cookie dough chunk puffs or any other flavor, but you should get the cookie dough chunk puffs, in my opinion. So let's talk a little bit more about Nick Blankenburg kind of in general and how he kind of fits into the Blue Jackets' future plans. Because I feel like with the signing of Branson, with the potential of David Jiricek, he kind of has been shuffled down the depth chart a little bit. But I will say, it feels very much like these 7 games that he played this season were almost like an audition, a tryout for him, and he seemed to impress. He got a ton of ice time. Obviously, he ended up scoring his first goal, got rewarded with a trip to the World Championships for Team USA, where he played 4 games for them and did pretty well, I think. He had a pretty good showing, and now he's, like I said, he's back. He's got a new contract with the Blue Jackets. I believe it's a 2-way contract. He is also waivers exempt. So looking at the way the defense shakes out, I wouldn't be surprised if he spends some time in Cleveland next season. I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing because, as we've kind of talked about with a lot of the young players while doing these, I would much rather have them playing significant minutes in Cleveland than playing like 8 minutes a game or being sat in the press box at the NHL. And okay, maybe they're learning things by getting to practice with the big team, but I would much rather have Blankenburg playing significant Cleveland minutes than 0 Columbus minutes. And that's kind of how I feel about basically every young player, I think. So while I would love to see Blankenburg in the NHL, and I think he is good enough to play in the NHL. I know he gets a lot of stick for his size. I think he's only about 5'9", 5'10". He's 5'9". He's about 125 pounds. So, he's on the smaller side for a defenseman, but I don't think that's a bad thing. And, his college numbers prove he can put up points. He fits perfectly into the Blue Jacket system. And the way that they've built their defense, we talked a little bit last episode about how the Blue Jackets have not really built their defense to need more than one defensive defenseman, really. Nick is an incredibly offensive defenseman, had 29 points in 38 games in his final season at Michigan. And like I said, 3 points in 7 games at the NHL level. Like, if he can sustain that, if he can be a 40 to 50 point guy for the Blue Jackets, like that's pretty darn good value for money, especially for a guy that didn't get drafted as well. That's the other thing. I don't even know if he registered for the draft or if he was passed over or what, but undrafted, played his 4 years at college, and now here he is in the NHL. It's a really fun story. So I think, like I said, I think he's built, maybe not built for the NHL, and I know I'm probably going to get people in the comments saying that the Blue Jackets got bullied last season, they got pushed around, they don't need more small defensemen, blah blah blah. Like, whatever. Our opinions differ. Like, I'm not gonna debate about that, but his game feels tailor-made for the Blue Jackets, and I would much rather have Blankenburg than at least 2 or 3 other defensemen currently on the roster as of cap friendly. So do with that knowledge what you will, but I'm a huge Blankenburg fan. I think he's going to go from good to better. Good to great to better, I should say. And whether he's in Columbus next season or Cleveland next season, I think he's going to be pushing to get back to the NHL, pushing to get better, pushing to move up the lineup and get more minutes, more significant minutes. He's an option for the power play in case, I think we've the power play is pretty established as Werenski and then Boquist. If one of those guys are out, then my next choice, genuinely, would be Nick Blankenburg. I think you could make an argument for a guy like Bean, or, again, maybe potentially a guy like Jiricek. But my choice, I think, would be Nick Blankenburg. Put him on that second power play unit and watch him work. He got some power play time near the end of the season, and I think he did really well with it. So I'm looking forward to seeing Nick Blankenburg next season. I'm going to be watching Jackets games. I'm going to be watching Monsters games. So wherever he ends up, I will see him, and we'll be doing regular updates on his development. So that's kind of a little bit of a review of Nick Blankenburg. In a minute, we are going to give him a letter grade. Obviously, that's what we've got to do, and probably talk a little bit more about his future with the team and his place in the lineup. That's all coming up next on Locked on Blue Jackets. So I'm just pulling up Cap Friendly because I never have it pulled up and always need it during an episode. But let's take a look at the defense. And yeah, he is currently of the 8 defensemen on the team right now. Werenski, Egebranson, Gavrikov, Boquist, Bean, Blankenburg, Peak, and Bayreuther. He's the only one that's waivers exempt. And honestly, there are only 2 guys that could potentially be sent down, and it's him and Bayreuther. I don't think Peak's getting sent down. Boquist, Bean, Gavrikov, Werenski are not being sent down. Gabranson is here. He's got a modified no trade clause, which I somehow just saw. Like, it's fine. We can't get distracted by Eric Branson again. This keeps happening. But with Blankenburg being the only waivers exempt guy, it seems pretty. It makes sense to me that they're going to send him down. I would love to see him get sent down and then just ruin lives in the AHL, get caught back up. But, I think realistically, I think he could hang in the NHL. I do. But I don't think a year in the minors is a bad thing for basically any young player, especially a guy like Blankenburg, who has been playing college hockey, which is not super different to professional hockey, but I think it's a step further away from the pros than the CHL is. And I can't fully articulate why that is, but I think a guy coming from college, I think, could definitely benefit from playing in the minors. And I think a guy like Blankenburg could benefit as well. A smaller guy, an offensive guy, if he can learn to play and to put up points against, the grinders and the veterans and, the huge monsters that they have in the AHL, that I think he can come up to the NHL and be like, oh, actually, it's not so bad up here. Because people are less intent on trying to decapitate you. So if he has to spend a year in the minors, I'm okay with it. I will be annoyed that he's not on the team when certain other defensemen are, but in terms of his development, I'm not mad about Blankenburg taking a year in Cleveland. In terms of his letter grade, it's tough because he only played 7 games. But and I've kind of been doing this with a lot of the guys that didn't play a ton of games for the Blue Jackets, is looking at where else they played this season. And I think 29 points in 38 college games, going to the Frozen Four, being the captain, and, obviously earning his NHL contract on top of all of that. Like, I don't quite think it's A-worthy, but I think that is a solid B season for Blankenburg. I think he's potentially a real stealth pick for the Blue Jackets. I think he's going to surprise some people. I think he surprised some people this season when he got that NHL contract. He was 7th in points on the team, and the guys ahead of him are all first round or second round NHL picks. So the guys ahead of him, Beniers, Brisson, Hughes, Bordelot, Johnson, and Power, those were the only guys that had more points than Nick Blankenburg this season. So I don't think you can have a problem with that. So yeah, solid B season for Nick Blankenburg. Super excited to see what he does next season, whether that's with the Monsters, whether that's with Cleveland, whichever it is. I'm super excited to watch him play some more and be an undersized defenseman in this league, because I think the league needs more of that, and I think that's the way that the league is going. So good job, Blankenburg. Super excited to see more from you, and that's kind of all I've got for today. Tomorrow, like I said in yesterday's episode, so Sunday's episode, I'm going to try really hard to get 5 episodes out this week. I'm pre-recording a couple, as you probably noticed. I'm wearing the same clothes that I was yesterday. That is because I am recording these back to back. I am not wearing the same clothes 2 days running, don't worry. But I am pre-recording a bunch of these. So tomorrow we're going to be starting on goalies, which is super exciting for me, a person who loves goalies. So we're going to be talking about JF Berube, how his season went, what his future is, whether he's going to be with the team, things like that. I think he's probably not going to be with Columbus, but I think he could probably be with Cleveland in a kind of a Brad Thiessen role. But we'll talk about all of that in a little bit more detail. So hopefully by Friday, we will have gone through all of the players, and then we can start looking at preseason stuff. We can start looking at line combinations, things like that. So that's the plan for this week. Tomorrow, Berube. Wednesday, Tarasov. Thursday, Korpisalo. Friday, Merzlikins. Finish on a high. Have a really good weekend, and then see where we go from there. So like I said, tomorrow, Berube. All things Berube, talking about that, like, wild 4 or 5 game stretch where he was a backup in the AHL and then suddenly a starter in the NHL and decided that he was going to win a bunch of games. We'll talk about all of that and more. I've been Jay Foster. You can find me on Twitter at _Jacob Foster, JAKOB FORSTER. Hey, I got it right the first time. You can find the podcast over on Twitter as well at LO_Blue Jackets. If you have comments, questions, criticisms, you can email me at lockedonbluejackets@gmail.com. And thank you once again for making this your first listen of the day every day. Locked on Blue Jacket is free and available on all podcast platforms, also over on YouTube. So if you haven't hit the subscribe button over there, then it makes my life easier, makes your life easier. Everybody wins. So please go and do that. Comment if you like the episode. If you didn't like the episode, then, I mean, I would prefer you didn't tell me, but I guess I can't really stop you. And until tomorrow, make sure you stay locked on.